Hey everyone, Sam here, otherwise known as FPL Pricey, and in today's video, I will be running through my team selection ahead of Game Week 20. Welcome back everyone to another video. Now today, as I mentioned, I'll be running through my team selection ahead of Game Week 20. If you did enjoy today's video, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a like, hit subscribe if you're new around here, and let's start off by taking a quick look back at Game Week 19. I won't dwell on it for too long because honestly, well, at least the first half of the matches were actually pretty decent. There was a really interesting batch of games the day before New Year's Eve. But yesterday's games, I think we got 2 goals from 4 matches. It was dreadful. Really, really boring stuff. And I went to go watch Southampton play, and that was 0-0 as well. So no entertainment on New Year's Day, but 42 points from me. A very small green arrow, and I feel like I could have recorded this 2 or 3 weeks ago and played this exact speech over and over again on all of my team selection videos, because I've either had a very small green or a very small red arrow week to week to week for quite a while now. It's getting a little bit boring, and I really want to press ahead and make up the gap between me and the top 100k as quickly as possible. But again, and I have said this on recent videos as well, I'm not in a bad position. I'm not miserable about where my overall rank is at right now. I just really want to start moving forward and get on the front foot again. I've got 2 free transfers to use, but a quick look back at Game Week 19, of course. Not many highlights. Bukayo Saka and Timber both returned. Lucky that Timber went off before the clean sheet wipeout, so he got 9 points. Kelleher did actually benefit from the goal drought yesterday, so kept the clean sheet for me against Spurs, 6 points from him. Elsewhere, nothing exciting whatsoever. O'Reilly went off just before the clean sheet lock-in. We'll talk about him in a moment. Lacroix didn't hit DEFCON. You had Lewis Hall getting DEFCON, but obviously the clean sheet wipeout. He picked up a knock as well, kept playing through it though, so we think he's probably going to be okay. Eddie Howe also mentioned today in the press conference that they think he's okay, so hopefully I can rely on him for the next few game weeks. Moving into my midfield, Cunha, it was a dreadful Man United performance against Wolves. Really disappointing, but has 2 good fixtures coming. Szoboszlai, 3-pointer from him. Again, not very exciting, although what was interesting is that he was taking corners from both sides, and he did at least create a couple of chances. So again, not a transfer that's paid off immediately, but they've got decent fixtures over the next few, and he should be on penalties. He is getting 90 minutes, so I don't want to rush him out of my side necessarily. Foden and Haaland both blanked again. Foden went through a streak of hitting returns every single week. He was unstoppable. Now, all of a sudden, it's all dried up again. So a player that I'm a little bit concerned about because he is quite a streaky one, but the minutes are still good. And the data is still not bad either. I think he just went through a bit of a hot streak. Now it's correcting far too much in the other direction. I think it's probably going to balance out where he ends up getting an attacking return on average every other game weeks. But he is a player that I'm at least looking at because there are other pretty expensive midfielders that I'll have my eye on very shortly. Up front, Ekitike did actually notch up over 1xG in the game, mainly from one big chance that he missed, of course, against Leeds. But the minutes were very good. I'm a little bit nervous about the tight turnaround to Game Week 20, but we'll talk about that in a moment. And Erling Haaland obviously blanked as well as my captain. So 42 points from me, small green arrow up to 280k. Let's talk about how I'm set up ahead of Game Week 20. Okay, so as I mentioned, I've got 2 free transfers, not much wiggle room in the bank. I've only got 0.1 to spend. So what am I planning on doing this game week? Well, looking at my team as it's currently set up without any transfers, I think you could roll it. And I've said that a few times now over the last few game weeks. It's possible to roll. And with some pretty big fixture swings coming in a few game weeks' time, Game Week 22's got some fixture swings, and then Game Week 24 especially, I do want some transfers ready for that period because there are some big money players. Looking at Bruno Fernandes, could be back pretty soon. Also looking at Cole Palmer and the Chelsea fixture swing coming, arguably Game Week 22, but certainly by Game Week 24, I'm going to want some free transfers. I've got 2 so far. It would be nice to find excuses to roll week on week. And actually, this team's not looking too bad. I've got Kelleher in goal away at Everton. Everton haven't been the most potent attacking force in recent times. And Kelleher, actually, since I brought him in, since that first blank in the week I bought him, he's actually returned really well for me. 2 clean sheets in the last 3, picking up some save points as well, generally speaking. And he's got great talent for saving penalties as well. So perfectly happy starting him away at Everton. Into my back three at the moment, I think this is where the big problem is, because I'm missing a very obvious player, but also there are players that I'm just not all that enamored with. So Timber is absolutely fine, got brought off a little bit early, and his minutes might be a slight doubt moving forwards, but not so much that I desperately want to get rid of him. The attacking data is still great. I still feel like we've been a bit unfortunate as Timber owners to not get more output out of him in those advanced areas that he gets himself into. So happy enough to own him against Bournemouth. Lewis Hall, like I mentioned, picked up a knock in game week 19 before halftime, played through it, took some painkillers, I think, and played the full 90, which is really interesting. If it was anything significant, you would have thought that they would just not risk him, given that he's recently been out with a pretty long-term injury. So I think he'll probably be fine. Eddie Howe has come out in the press conference this morning and also said, we think he's okay, but I don't trust a word that man says. He's very consistently lied in press conferences and thrown out information that just factually isn't correct. And then by the time we get to the deadline and the game actually comes up and the lineup's out, everything he said is proven to be incorrect. So I will take that one with a pinch of salt. But given that I've got other issues to deal with, and I do like Lewis Hall's upcoming fixtures, I think I'm probably just going to hold on to him for now at home to Palace. And then O'Reilly at home to Chelsea. He looked like he was struggling a little bit as he came off around the 56th, 57th minute. Didn't get the clean sheet, of course. There are two ways of looking at this. Maybe he's got an issue, and maybe that indicates that with a 2-day turnaround, he's a problem when we look at him as a starter for the Chelsea game in game week 20. But maybe it's he's played a lot of minutes recently and Pep wanted to rest him, bring on Gvardiol for a bit, who also needed a bit of a break, and just share their minutes in game week 19 against Sunderland so that they're both ready for game week 20 against Chelsea at home, which is undoubtedly a big game. Chelsea without their manager now. So I do want as much Man City as possible in that game because I think they're going to do really well. So Foden, Haaland, great. O'Reilly, it would be nice if I could guarantee that he's going to play that match. I'm a little bit nervous, though. I've got Lacroix on the bench away at Newcastle. I don't really want to start him ahead of any of these players. So maybe there's a couple of moves I could make there. Now, it's obvious who I'm missing in my backline as well. Gabriel, who came back with a 15-pointer. Obviously, we know the talent that he's got from set pieces. And he goes up next, and I'm sure you've seen this already, but in case you haven't, the next three teams he plays, Bournemouth, Liverpool, then Nottingham Forest, are, in that order, the worst three clubs for, I think it's goals conceded from set pieces in the top 5 European leagues so far this season. So basically, Gabriel is the perfect player to have for those fixtures. The clean sheet odds are not as good as they could be for Arsenal, but given that Arsenal are a very good defence, I do still want Gabriel. We'll talk about him and my route to him later, but obviously I've got 2 free transfers, so I can get to him if I really was desperate. Into my midfield 5, I don't think I'm going to make too many moves here this week. I do have routes to maybe take down 1 or 2 of these players a little bit to help me afford Gabriel, but it's not like I'm rushing to get rid of any of them. Saka, arguably not good value for money, but he is returning fairly consistently at least. Cunha has been very disappointing, and if he didn't have great fixtures over the next 2, and arguably Leeds away isn't even a great fixture, by the way, that might be quite tough for Man United. I actually kind of fancy Leeds to turn them over in that game. But as a batch of fixtures, Leeds followed by Burnley, it's not a nightmare. And I do want him for the Burnley game. So ideally, I'll hold on to him for a little while longer. And then he might be a nice route to Bruno Fernandes in a few game weeks' time as well. So he probably stays. Szoboszlai, I've only owned for a game week. I think we saw glimpses of what he's capable of in game week 19. He obviously took set pieces, corners from both sides, had a little bit of output when it comes to open play threat as well, but nothing too exciting. But given his price point and the fact that he is locked in for good minutes and has penalties while Salah and Isak are no longer in the team, I think Szoboszlai stays for now. But I do have a route to get to Gabriel by selling him that I'll talk about in a moment. Foden, like I said, frustrating, but it's a great fixture against Chelsea, who have no Caicedo, which will be a big loss for them, you would think. And then, of course, they're also without Maresca now as well. So are they going to look a little bit rudderless? Maybe they react really positively to it, and maybe they become more robust in response to the manager leaving. But without Caicedo, I think that's going to be tough. So I'd be reluctant to sell Foden as well. Elliot Anderson, he's going to get 4 points a week for the rest of time by the looks of it. 3 or 4 points a week. He picks up the odd yellow card. He's never going to get an attack and return, it seems. I might bench him the week that he ends up getting one. I'm not really expecting too many miracles from him, but he's always okay. He's never an immediate sell. Maybe in a few game weeks' time when Dewsbury Hall's back, I could look at moving him on to Dewsbury Hall. But right now, I don't see it as like an immediate problem. And ideally, I find a way to restructure this to a 4-4-2 and bench him this week against Aston Villa. But for now, he starts, and I don't think that's a nightmare. Up top, Haaland, don't need to talk about that too much right now. And then Ekitike away at Fulham. Disappointing not to get a return against Leeds. Obviously, he picked up an assist in the first game week I owned him against Wolves, game week 18, and was unfortunate not to get returns or more returns out of those two matches. Fulham next, who have a depleted back line, although not an easy fixture, followed by Arsenal, which isn't great, but then Burnley after that. I'm tempted to use him as the cash cow to maybe get to Gabriel, but whether or not that's a rush to do so this week is up for debate. Anyway, that's my bus team going into game week 20. No transfers made, but I do have a few routes, and all of them do circle around whether or not I'm desperate to get to Gabriel immediately. Okay, so I've put together a few different transfer pathways that would use up both of my free transfers to get to Gabriel. I don't think it's something to rip apart your team for. I probably wouldn't be taking a -4 if you're in that position to get to Gabriel. He's a great player, probably one of the best value players in FPL this season, but there are still doubts around him for the next few. The fixtures aren't perfect, and it's not like he's going to score every week. Famous last words, because he is going up against 3 very poor set-piece teams, but I don't think we're expecting a goal every single week. Just because he did so against Aston Villa, it was a nice reminder of what he's capable of, but I wouldn't just take that to the bank every week and assume that he's going to keep doing that week on week. So he's a very good player to buy, and it sets me up very well for the long term because he's a player that I will want probably for the rest of the season as long as he can stay fit. But I don't think you need to rush to get him now if it breaks apart your entire team to do so and you need to start taking hits. In my situation, I've got 2 free transfers and a few downgrades I could make to get to Gabriel pretty easily, and a number of defenders I'm not in love with right now either. So transfer route number 1 does involve selling Ekitike and taking the money out of the forward line down to Jarrod Bowen, who's got some great fixtures coming. The data is awful, let's face it, but he does tick along consistently. And we've seen it from seasons on seasons on seasons of data for Jarrod Bowen. He gets an attacking return in around 50% of the matches. You can almost take that to the bank. And with the fixtures coming, even if West Ham are awful, and they've not been great this season, but Jarrod Bowen has still picked up 8 attacking returns this year in a really struggling West Ham side. They've got better fixtures coming. You would like to think the results maybe improve, but even if they lose every single one in the next few games, if they score a goal, then Jarrod Bowen is likely to get that goal and also pick up bonus points as a result as well. So I do actually really like that transfer route. I think it's probably one of my 2 favourite options this week to remove the money from Ekitike, who is a good option, but he's not on penalties. I have doubts about how many minutes he's going to play against Fulham in game week 20 because it's a really quick turnaround and he's just played 90 minutes. So I'm not in love with Ekitike. I think he's probably too expensive for what we're getting out of him. But also there is an ownership play here because he has about 80% effective ownership at my rank. It is a huge gamble for me to remove him now ahead of Fulham, followed by Arsenal. That's probably fine. But then Burnley afterwards. You would think the minutes generally are going to be pretty good without Isak in the side right now. It's a big risk. And Bowen is a good player, but I'm not expecting too many big hauls out of him. Like I said, he'll tick along nicely, but I could end up really getting punished if I get rid of Ekitike, who we know has brace potential in him. He's got those big explosive hauls. It's possible. So I quite like this combination. I would sell either O'Reilly or Lacroix. I think right now, if I had to pick one to sell, it would be very marginally O'Reilly, given that I have doubts over the minutes. I've not been that impressed with him recently. And Gvardiol at left back played really well in the minutes that he got against Sunderland. So is there a chance that Pep has a look at that and says, you know what, O'Reilly's young. He's obviously very, very talented. No one's questioning that. But maybe I just take him out of the firing line a little bit. He's played a lot of minutes. Give him a rest. Play Gvardiol there, which is a known entity. and not really mess around too much for the next few game weeks. It's possible. And I think that given that getting rid of O'Reilly also gives me the option or the opportunity to get to other Man City players soon, because there are other good Man City players out there, I am starting to wonder whether O'Reilly is the third best one to own. So I do quite like getting rid of him this week. I don't mind getting rid of Lacroix either. Not nice fixtures over the next few, and Palace have not been quite as robust defensively as they were earlier on in the season. But the fixtures do turn eventually, and the one thing that we know about Lacroix is he will get 90 minutes. He is good on the DEFCON. He's got a bit of aerial threat from set plays as well. Everything about Lacroix is a very known entity. So even if I'm not in love with him as a pick right now, he's probably a little bit more secure than O'Reilly for the minutes, just consistent ticking along of returns, even if it's just DEFCON for a bit. However, if we move over to option number 2, I'm also pretty happy to get rid of them both. Getting rid of O'Reilly and Lacroix right now, and I'd have to do this tonight because the 2 players I'm buying are going up tonight, and I would be priced out of it if they did. I have the exact money to do O'Reilly and Lacroix to Gabriel and Alderete. Now, Sunderland have been phenomenal defensively this season. For a team coming up to the Premier League for the first time in ages, for them to be that robust and even keep City at bay in Game Week 19, really, really impressive. If I had the money, I would probably stretch for Mukiele, who's maybe been ever so slightly the better pick over Alderete. But if you look at the attacking data, they're both matching each other at 0.11 XGI per 90. Obviously, they play on the same side. Good fixtures coming over the next 6. I'd normally be benching either of them, but if they come off my bench, it's not a problem either. It's nice to restructure this way as well, because it gives me that 4 million defender, and I feel like my balance was slightly off. I've got a lot of expensive defenders right now. My cheapest one is Anderson. There's something quite comforting about bottoming out one of those positions. Alderete at 4 million, I think is fantastic value for money. Like I said, in the comparison with Mukiele, he's got just as good attacking data and actually just as good, if not very slightly better, on the defensive contributions per 90 than Mukiele as well. So I think actually right now, options 1 and 2 are my favorite 2. We'll walk through that in terms of my team at the end of the video and figure out which one I prefer. But I really like this route as well. And even though I don't love getting rid of Lacroix because he's, again, just a very known entity, by the time we get to the next batch of good fixtures for Palace, that's Game Week 26, in my personal opinion. By that point, Munoz is probably going to be back. Richards is probably going to be back. And I might want some sort of attacking asset as well. Lacroix probably isn't my favourite Crystal Palace player to own right now. So again, a bit like O'Reilly, getting rid of them now offers me the opportunity to get to different players from that team later on. So I quite like option number 2. Options 3 and 4, I'll just drift over fairly quickly. Could get rid of Foden to fund Gabriel from O'Reilly. The best player that I can get to below Foden that would help me afford Gabriel is Rodgers. I really like Rodgers, but I don't think I'm in a rush to do this, especially with Foden at home to Chelsea. I think right now, without Caicedo, that's a good fixture, and his minutes have been phenomenal. I still think the attacking returns are going to come. In fact, the underlying data is almost double. I think it is actually double what Rodgers is putting out as well. Now, Rodgers obviously is a fantastic finisher, and I back him to do really well in the upcoming fixtures. I'm jealous of people who can get there, but I don't think it's worth selling Foden for him, in my personal opinion. Option number 4 is to get rid of Szoboszlai and take the money down to someone like Garner at Everton, who's been actually really, really good value for money at just 5 million. The problem with this is it leaves me in a situation where I've got 2 really cheap midfielders, Elliot Anderson and Garner, and neither of them have great underlying attacking data. So I'm relying on DEFCONs mostly, and then the odd attacking return, and almost getting lucky with the odd attacking return from them if I'm ever starting them. I really like Garner, but probably not alongside Elliot Anderson. And I think this probably leaves me a little bit inflexible in the future. Lots of money in very few positions. And I think there's a lot of value to be had in the midfield. I think there are more than 3 attacking players in the midfield that I want. Garner removes the funds and it makes me a little bit inflexible. So I think option number 1 and 2 are my 2 favourite options. Option number 5 is just roll the transfers. I don't need to make a move. It's an okay starting 11, as I mentioned earlier on. And maybe I'm not in a rush to get to Gabriel. And that extra information later on with extra free transfers might come in handy. I'm tempted to do that, but I think I'm going to make a double move. I think I want Gabriel. I think I've seen enough and I just want to get it sorted. I just want to be able to look at my team knowing that I've got most of the players that I really want immediately. And then hopefully over the next few game weeks, start to build up the transfers to go on the attack again around game week 24. Okay, so let's wrap up by taking a look at how those 2 different preferred transfer combinations impact my game week 20 side. I mentioned at the start of the video that I would potentially look at benching Elliot Anderson and playing a 4-4-2. That would be possible if I sold Lacroix instead of O'Reilly for Gabriel. However, given the logic that I've presented in this video, I think Lacroix is probably, if I only sold one of the 2, the safer player to hold on to. So with this combination, it would be Gabriel in for O'Reilly, and this would be the one where I take Ekitike down to Bowen. Bowen away at Wolves, great fixture this week. I think this actually looks like a really strong side for game week 20. But I am worried about not having Ekitike for the next few game weeks, given the ownership's really high, the underlying attacking data is much better than Bowen's, and he's not got much competition up front right now. So as long as he's fit, he should play. And he's got Burnley in a couple of weeks as well. So I do quite like this combination. I'm still considering it. But I think my current preferred combination, as I've just switched over to, is rather than selling Ekitike, to sell both Lacroix and O'Reilly, and then bring in Alderete alongside Gabriel. Alderete goes straight to the bench. It does mean that I'm still starting Elliot Anderson away at Villa. Probably a 4-pointer. I think that's okay. It's not exciting, but it'll tick along okay. And then obviously it gives me Gabriel alongside Timber for that defensive double up for Arsenal. Now, do I need to make these moves? Arguably not. My team looks okay as long as O'Reilly starts. I don't think that it's a nightmare to go without Gabriel this week. But I just kind of want him. I just want it done before it gets to a point his price rises out of control by game week 22. I probably missed a few points, maybe a clean sheet or 2 here or there. And even if he doesn't return massively in the next few weeks, for me, it's going to be more difficult to get to him in game week 22. And I know he's a player that as long as he's fit, I want in my starting 11 every single week. So I'm tempted to just make these moves. Let me know which combination you prefer, whether or not it's get rid of Ekitike down to Bowen, who I think is a really good option over the next few, or whether it's to just get rid of Lacroix for Alderete. Alderete sits on my bench. Away at Spurs, I don't mind if he comes off my bench, but I'm not in a rush to play him. And then he's actually got some really good fixtures over the next few where I'm never worried about starting him if I need to. So I think I prefer this one. I prefer this combination. I should mention that I didn't do a captaincy matrix in this video. It just got a bit too long and you've only got a very tight turnaround. I didn't want to waste all of your time. I'm going with Erling Haaland at home to Chelsea, given Caicedo's out and given that they're managerless at the moment. I think it's still a very good opportunity for attacking returns. So Haaland, despite blanking against Sunderland, he's been a bit disappointing recently. I think he'll get back to his best against Chelsea at home. Vice captaincy on Saka, again, a pretty good option. Bournemouth have been shipping goals for fun, but mainly away from home. And Bournemouth at the Vitality are a bit stronger, a bit more robust. Arsenal might not get as much joy. So I think he's a good option, but I wouldn't be rushing to captain him over Haaland this week. I'm happy enough just owning Saka. So yeah, that's captaincy for me this week. It's going to be on Erling Haaland. I think my team looks pretty strong if I make these moves. And if I do, I'm going to have to do it tonight. So I'm going to have to think fast over whether or not it's Bowen I want to be bringing in for Ekitike, or whether or not I just do the Alderete move and get rid of Lacroix as well as O'Reilly. Let me know what you prefer in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed today's video, do leave a like. And if you're new around here, subscribe as well. That would be massively appreciated. And I'll see you as we start preparing for Game Week 21.